thank you for joining us today. This interview is part of FICOM's Organic Growth Series, and I am really pumped to be joined by two executives from Brighton Jones today, who I'll introduce in just a moment. The reason that we're producing this organic growth content series for all of our followers at FICOM is because we know that organic growth is top of mind for most all advisors and advisory firms across the country today. I have the privilege of going to many conferences around the industry, working with large RIA firms, advisors, executives at wealth management platforms. And the topic of organic growth has continued to bubble to the top of those conversations. I think we've come out of a period of time, of course, where we were really riding a long and extended bull market, which was driving growth at firms. We also are still in a period where inorganic growth, which we define as growth by acquisition of other firms, it just continues to be a really frothy market from an M&A perspective. And so that's also driving growth. And when you peel back those layers and you take inorganic growth out of the equation, and when you also have market volatility and down markets as another part of the equation, the spotlight on organic growth has been quite bright in recent months. And I think what we're seeing across the industry is that organic growth, true organic growth, which is gathering new assets or revenue from new clients or adding wallet share from existing clients, it's quite anemic today. And so what we want to be able to do at FICOM is to really shine a spotlight on firms that are doing really innovative and interesting things from an organic growth perspective so that you all can learn, listen and learn and sort of ask yourself questions about how you're going to drive growth in your business and what you can learn from the people that we're very privileged to have join us. So that's why we're here. And like I said, I am really excited to be joined by two executives from Brighton Jones. So we have Carly Dillon, who is the Chief Client Experience Officer, and Scott Lieber, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Brighton Jones. Carly and Scott, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks, Meg. Happy to be here.
So I'd love for you to start by just giving us a brief introduction. Tell us about Brighton Jones. Help us to get to know the firm a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, I'll kick us off, and so a little background on Brighton Jones. So we are in our 23rd year. We were a firm co-founded by Charles Brighton and John Jones back in the year 2000 in Seattle, which is where Scott is today, up on Capitol Hill. And the idea that at the time, John and Charles were both tax practitioners, slugging away. I mean, it's 10/17, so, we just had tax day yesterday, but, two tax practitioners that saw a better way to do wealth management. And so right from out of the gate, they coined the phrase personal CFO. It's something that we hold strong to even today. And it's really making sure that we are executing as our clients, personal CFO, which means we're delivering across their balance sheet. So fast forward 23 years, which is quite the leap, but we've got 6,000 clients, 6,000 households that we have the privilege of working with. We are adding services to our PCFO kind of hat. We're thinking about adding value beyond the balance sheet. So we have programs that are really helping clients to live their richer life. And I think the important thing to mention is their mission statement. So when John and Charles started, the idea was we wanted to help clients live a richer life. And it has evolved to now we want to help our clients, our colleagues, and our global community live a richer life. That's a brief snapshot of who we are.
Amazing. Thank you. And I know that you are a $10 billion assets under management firm. You also track assets under advisement, or AUA, and I think you're over 21 billion. You were recently acknowledged by CityWire as one of the fastest growing RIA firms in the country, and top grower in Washington State. So tell us a little bit about the breadth of the firm, how many advisors, how many locations, and anything else that might be sort of good to note from a structural perspective.
Yeah, I think from a structural headquarters here, as Carly mentioned, is here in Seattle, but we have 18 offices across the country. We do have goals of being in about 20 to 30 markets as we look at the next 3 years, but today we're about 250 full-time employees, 18 markets. Another thing of note is that we're 100% employee owned. And so no outside capital, and about a third to almost a fourth of, or 40% are partners within the firm or owners within the firm. And so I think that's really true to what John and Charles are, when they started Brighton Jones, it's like, let's grow one client, one employee at a time and just do it kind of brick by brick. And we stuck to that strategy as we grow one office or one market at a time and every client at a time.
Yeah, I think that ownership structure is really interesting. And also the fact that you don't have any outside capital for a firm your size, it's very unheard of today. And so I think that really speaks to the mission that you mentioned, Carly, and sort of how the firm has been built and the ownership structure. And we're going to dive a little bit more into all of that. And you have, I think we talked about this, but just to confirm, and so everyone can hear, growth by acquisition has not been a growth strategy for you to date.
No.
So so you haven't been growing by acquisition. So what has your year-over-year growth look like for Brighton Jones?
So when we look at year-over-year growth, we target from a goal perspective around 14 to 16 to 17% based on the starting run rate revenue of that year. And so if we're starting a year at 10 million, we're going to set a goal of like 1.6 to 1.7 million dollars. And so when we think about growth the new year, we're like, how are we going to grow 15% outside of market, outside of obviously acquisition, but bring on new assets? And so this year coming up, we're starting roughly around a $70 million firm. Our goal is right around 15 to 16% with about 500 new families that we're targeting to bring on completely organically.
So, I mean, there's a lot that we could even just dive into in that, which is you're tracking growth by revenue versus AUM or AUA.
We do that, and I'm going to quote John Jones here, but we pay people on revenues. AUM and AUA is interesting. I mean, that is obviously an industry metric, but at the end of the day, we got to have the right compensation, we have the right opportunity, and revenues is how it's the fuel that pays for everybody, whether it's current employees or new employees coming on board. And so we do everything based on a revenue base.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And from a marketing perspective, we would be in alignment with sort of that philosophy and approach. And all, because revenue also has, you can drop down to profitability quite easily. And so tracking both, I think, is really important. And then you also mentioned that you have your revenue growth target for 2024. It's a roughly 15 to 16% growth goal. And then you back into what's it going to take to get there, right? So 500 potentially new households. So tell me a little bit about like, have you always, since both of you have been at Brighton Jones, has that always been the business strategy? Has it always just been an intentional somewhere 15 to 20% revenue growth backing into the number of households, or has that evolved over time?
Well, quoting John again, that's always something that has been top of mind for Brighton Jones, and something that John and Charles, started with in year one. So you ask about the intention, right? How do you have intention and attention around that growth? And that's a phrase that we use often at Brighton Jones, right? You have to have intention and follow through with attention. And so every year we set our revenue goals at the end of the year, but we start the year previous in around May with business planning. And so we as an alignment team or a leadership group get together, make sure we're aligned on our growth targets, make sure that we're aligned on our keeping client targets. Business planning goes beyond just the growth numbers, because as anyone who services clients know, that if you're servicing clients well, that they're going to help, give you referrals, and that's going to be one of your main channels for growth. And so we start in May, and we're very intentional. We build those business plans. We gain alignment through multiple exercises with our senior leads and different leadership teams within our organization. And then our biggest goal, or one of our biggest goals, is that every single person in the firm, not just the lead advisors, not just the people who are client facing, has a business plan. One of the things that we talk about a lot is, the key to having happy people at your organization is that they know the goals of the firm, and two, they know how they individually contribute towards achieving those goals. And so business planning, I could spend a lot more time talking about it, but that's central towards our success.
So you start in May for the following year.
That's right. Our BD year kicks off 10/1. So we're 17 days into our new business development year, but that planning starts back in May.
Wow. and everybody has a business plan. So from across levels, across the organization, everyone has a business plan. What does that look like? Is it documented on one piece of paper? Is it something that bubbles up into sort of a project management system? Like, help me to like demystify how difficult I think that would be for an organization of your size.
Oh, it's difficult, but I'm going to take 2 steps back.
Sure.
I'd love to get into the weeds of business planning and how we manage that and how we measure it. But one of the things that's critical towards that cascading effect is that we start with our vision. And so something that we did this year, and I'd love to say we've always done it, but we did it this year, is we cascaded, or we set a 2025 vision. We call it Thrive to 25. And in it, what we did is John Jones wrote a letter to ourselves reflecting on the past couple of years' success. So the letter lands as if you're in 2025 and it's talking about all the great things we've done. And so we had that vision. We knew what we were marching towards. We talked about the business lines we're going to have, beyond the balance sheet services, the internal programs we're going to do, the trips we're going to take clients on. And so we have that highest level alignment and vision for where we're going. And then if you back into that, then you got to know who owns bodies of work. And so we have a thing that we call the winning formula. And the winning formula, it's pretty simple at the highest level. It's broken into 6 different sections. It's keeping clients, getting clients, keeping people, getting people. And I guess and then operations as a strategic advantage. And then it's all surrounded by a mindset program that we call MESSY. And so that helps us. So we have our vision, we have our team members and how they fit into that vision, and then we go into business planning. And to your question around what it looks like, right now it looks like an Excel document. We love Excel. We're financial people, and it populates into dashboards that are visualized in Power BI. And so we have real-time reporting around all the different goals that we set across those quadrants of the business: keep, get, and ops.
Interesting. I mean, that was one of the many, many things that I was quite fascinated about in learning more about Brighton Jones in preparation for this conversation, is that the intention towards growth is really embedded across the organization. I think, Scott, you said we would just drive toward we have a culture of growth. It's embedded as part of the culture. It sort of hits everything, like you're talking about, from vision to values to people to client service to operations and all of the things. And I think that it's an important thing for us to talk a little bit more about during this conversation, because I think you can't, or in my experience anyways, I should say, working with firms across the country, it's one thing to put a goal out there. And I'm a big believer in goal setting. So to put a goal out there, whether it's revenue increase or profitability, changing that metric, or assets under management, client household served, like whatever your growth metric is, you have to have a goal. But if there's no sort of intentionality behind culturally, operationally, from a service model perspective, from a people model perspective, like how you're going to reach that growth, it's really, really hard to achieve. I've learned that myself as a business owner, and I've also learned that alongside the clients that we serve. It's more than just putting that bogey out there. It's so much more before that about how you can actually hit the bogey with some level of confidence and predictability. So it sounds to me like this is it's just part of the fabric of Brighton Jones. But is there anything that you would add to sort of that culture of growth or the mindset that you bring that would be interesting for our listeners?
I think we do a really good job, and we're really intentional around what Carly was talking about, these objectives that we have, and our objective around growth. The word we use around growth is fuel. And it's not only fuel for, better client service, it's fuel for everybody individually. So I think it's really important to tie growth back to the individual. It's nice to tie it to the mission and the why. That's kind of like your North Star, but tying it back to what does that mean to me? And so we have a very disciplined, transparent financial model that we run the business on. Everybody in the firm knows that we run 60% to people, 15% to overhead, 25% to profitability, and where we're making investments. And so we tie revenue, saying if we don't grow revenues, we make it super clear. It's like, well, where do raises come from? Where do we want to hire more CPAs or more JDs, or where do we hire people? And so we really bring the word fuel, being like, if we want to be the best RIA that we can be a national firm, Well, we need the fuel, which is the growth of revenues, to keep you, because it's a super competitive market to keep incredible people and attract incredible people. So we just really are intentional around, these are our 4 objectives around people, growth, and service. But with growth, we tie it to, you want opportunity in your career, you want opportunity professionally, financially, and we want to have a whole suite of people that offer in-house expertise, from philanthropy to private investments to tax to estate, to everything that we can in-house. That doesn't happen without growth. And so we really are consistent with our messaging around, like, growth is our fuel, full stop. And if we're not growing, we're probably dying. And so, like, right now, these numbers aren't just like, we want to grow 15% for the fun of it. It's just like, actually, when we look at what we want to get for pay raises and how many people we want to hire, it's like, well, those are the numbers you need to have a healthy, sustainable firm.
Yeah, that transparency is so important. I'd be curious to hear from you both as you're thinking about sharing that level of transparency and showing them the financial model and having these conversations, which are sometimes at many businesses held entirely within executive teams and not cascaded at all. Is this something that, you're talking about at quarterly meetings, annual planning meetings, or does it bubble all the way down to sort of like just regular one-on-ones? I mean, how often are those larger strategic conversations had with employees across the organization?
I wear a couple of hats at Brighton Jones. So as we talked about, I wear our Chief Client Experience Officer hat, but I also run a team of people. I run one of our service teams out of Portland. And so I have like firsthand experience of what it's like having those one-to-one conversations. And I think every person in my role does it a bit differently. But I know that with the team members or our lead advisors, we're reviewing our 5-year people plan, and we're having conversations around, okay, we're not growing the way we are, or hey, we're growing beyond our projected numbers. What roles does that open up for us? In fact, real time, we're having that conversation. It's opening up the door for a business development person we hadn't planned on. So it's really exciting. And then we have one of the things that we did, and Scott was on a team who helped lead this, which was awesome, is we created a career modeling, a career trajectory deck. And that really puts forth, like, what is the path to ownership for each individual in the company? And that is done one-to-one. I do that one-to-one with our team members on a quarterly basis. So we're going through and we're finding where they are on the career map, and we're talking about, okay, what is their individual responsibility for growth in order to help them move to this next role, and help them move to, getting SARS ownership, or help them move to being, a B share owner. So it's very transparent, and it's frequent. And the last thing I'll say about that is we ask our team members to be their own CEO, to be there, to really be the CEO of their own career. And so the messaging to my team is always, hey, if you have questions, let's get in there, ask those questions, and we'll figure out how you can be more involved.
And Meg, if I can, I think Carly, what she just said is perfect. What we did also to help that in 2019, so I joined Brighton Jones in 2015. We were about 50, 55 people. In 2019, we hit about 100, 110, 120 people. And there's something called the Dunbar number. I don't know if you've heard it, but it's this idea that once you pass over the Dunbar number, the tribe leader, the founders, have a tough time having personal relationships with each and every individual. Especially at that time, we were at 5 offices. And so one thing that we did is that we took the one team and broke it into a team of teams. And so right now we have, I would guess, about 20 people managing people, having these compensation conversations. Before, it all rolled up to kind of 1 or 2 people. We are now having, so I think we're trying, one of our strategies is stay small as you get big. How are the leaders that are on the front line working with the team members to have the career conversations, and then as a leadership team, that's why we need to be really thoughtful around our financial discipline, so that Carly, as a team leader in Portland, knows what she's working with, and growing at a 2% versus 12% versus 20%. She can talk about the implications to the team that make it really real to the individual. And it's not coming from Seattle, it's coming from somebody that they work with every day. And so that was one thing that we did. That was a huge, it was 2 steps back, hopefully to take 5 forward. But we now have a team structure across the whole organization, which I think really helps having that one-on-one and building deep trust with your, your day-to-day manager.
Absolutely. And I mean, you'd have to do that to have the culture of growth that you have, because you have to rely on everybody within the organization to sort of know what their contribution is, and to also know what benefit they get from that contribution. And so it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think what you've both shared is really important from, I think, a vision perspective, business strategy, sort of how you are targeting growth goals, but how you're operationalizing towards those growth goals. And it actually strikes me as really interesting I mean, you're a very, very large RIA. We worked with RIAs all across the country of all different shapes and sizes. I don't think I've seen an RIA of your size that has a chief strategy officer and a chief client experience officer, and you're just two people on a larger executive team. So I think that speaks to the innovative thinking, the vision of the founders, and of course, the overall vision of the leadership team. But just talk to me a little bit about your individual roles. How did they come to be? Was there immediate buy-in for the roles? Was it a natural evolution of the firm, or were you saying, hey, I think this is an opportunity that we should lean into?
You can go first.
No,
go ahead.
no.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit about the chief client experience role. So I came to Brighton Jones in 2018, there we go, 2018. And my first role here was actually as our managing director in Portland. And so it was to oversee our P&L, to grow our team, grow our growth, just everything, focal to the conversation we just had. And through that, started to develop a really good awareness and understanding around how we service clients. I was in, and actually continue to be in, most of our client meetings, prospective client meetings, and actually most of our client meetings in which we're delivering advice, and really saw some areas of opportunity. My background, I spent 10 years at Nike. So in the innovation space, leading small teams, creating startups. And so that's just my DNA. I am that entrepreneur, that innovator. And so I couldn't help myself but start to talk about, hey, there's more that we can do here, right? There's more opportunity, there's more services, there's more opportunity for standardization of how we present ourselves. And so it was a little bit of push and a little bit of pull, and officially started in this role back in, I guess, 20. I don't know, it blurs together. But it's been met with a ton of appreciation and applause, both from our clients and our service team members. So knowing that, from the client perspective, having somebody that you can call that isn't your service team, that is somebody that you can share ideas with, be really transparent, plant seeds, around future service offerings. The clients love it. Hopefully our team loves it too. But one of the things that I've been able to do that I think is most gratifying to the role, and most probably separates us from our competitors, is that we have an innovation panel. So our clients get together every quarter with a meeting that I host, and they give us feedback. They tell us what we're doing well. They tell us the services they want. They help us deliver and help us create new metrics in which we're holding our team members accountable for. So that's really at the heart of, what is client experience? And then my responsibility is to carry those forward appropriately.
Fascinating.
Scotty?
No, Carly, I just think you've done an incredible job joining and kind of instilling a kind of a lean mindset to our product development. It's just like, let's get feedback from our clients. Let's get feedback from our people. Let's get feedback all the time. And don't be afraid to change. I mean, we say change is our competitive advantage. If we're going to be on a spectrum of not changing ever, changing too much, we're going to lean over here, which creates a little chaos. But I think, and it goes back to what Carly said a little bit earlier. I give a lot of credit to John and Charles as they think about the growth of the Brighton Jones, bringing in outside individuals into a very traditional, industry. Carly comes from Nike. I'm a two-time entrepreneur. Our head of marketing was at Microsoft. Our head of technology was, a consultant. Our head of, our COO, April Kirkos, she was, she was a CEO of a tech firm. And so it's just like bringing in the outside thinking and outside kind of experience to a traditional industry, and having the collaboration there, I think is part of the 1 + 1 = 3. But to answer your question, Meg, I think I stepped into the chief strategy role probably like 2018, 2017. And it was a conversation I had with John and Charles around, as we think about growth today and growth tomorrow, John, our visionary, is always thinking about like, where do we want to be in 10 years? And then we're super disciplined on where we want to be in a year. And I go, I feel like there's an opportunity to have somebody really think about and, quote unquote, own what does the firm look like in 3 to 5 years? And so that was a conversation. It was a conversation with John and Charles around like, what if I played that role and made sure that we are executing every day, every month, every year? However, we're making progress towards that vision. And so the chief strategy role, I really look at what is the 3 to 5 year picture. Carly mentioned the Thrive to 25. I've been involved in like, how are we getting there? What either new people do we need to bring on, or what kinks in the hose do we need to relieve to make sure that we're progressing towards a vision that John's setting, but also making sure that I'm not losing touch with the business. So it was something that been in the role about 6 years, and really look at the 3 to 5 year picture of where we want to be.
So interesting. I love that you said change is your competitive advantage, because I can feel that, right? I can feel the innovation and the drive and like the push, which is really exciting. I'm obviously an entrepreneur too. And so like, I feel like we share that sort of like hunger. I don't know if you're both as competitive as I am, but like that also certainly drives it. I feel that from you. I don't want to put that on you, but I feel it from you.
Pretty competitive. If you track Enneagrams, we're both Enneagram 3s. We're super achievers, very highly competitive. So
yeah, so we're a good little team here. So I think that what's also really validating to hear you talk about, Carly, is the idea of getting feedback. I love the concept of the innovation panel, inviting your clients to come in and give you real feedback. This is what's working. This is what's not working. This is what we'd like to see. We talk about that a lot with our clients when we're thinking about marketing, messaging, and positioning, and what type of content should be created and how should it be delivered. I mean, obviously, sometimes the answer is like far more intuitive than marketers can make it out to be. And so that's often one of the first things that we say is, well, let's just call some of your clients. Like if you have a dream client that you just wish you could clone because you love working with them, they value the way that you do your work, you address the pain points that they have, like it's just a really good, fulfilling client relationship. Ask them. Just ask, and you'll get the insight that you need. And whether or not you wholesale agree with it or go to implement what they're suggesting right away, like it's not so much about the I was at A and now I'm at B because of what I heard, but it's more so about like taking the feedback, integrating it into your process, applying it to what is the vision, what is the strategy for the business, how does this all come together, and using it as a really great reference point by which to move the business forward. I think it's so important. And I would never say that it's easy, because I'm sure you have a lot of structure around your innovation panel. And I could imagine that there's a lot of sensitivities and which clients and how often, what are you asking of them and all the things. But the concept is deceptively simple, right? It's just asking the right questions and being a really good listener.
Yep. We talk about being client obsessed, right? And I mean, I love it. It's simple. Just ask the client. And you're not always going to get the answer you want or you anticipated or you think is best, and then you figure out how to move forward. We've learned so much through that panel. And we've also, one of the other things we've started doing with clients that feels applicable to bring up right now is we've started asking them for feedback on, do you trust us? Right? Like trust is like a cornerstone of anyone you're going to talk to in this RIA space. And one of the things that we started thinking through more deeply 2 years ago is that trust is really subjective and it's really personal, right? If I asked, you, Meg, and you, Scott, like define trust, you might say something in the same lens, but it's totally different. It means something different based on your experience. And so we needed to put some familiarity and some structure around how we think about trust. And so we built this trust equation. We borrowed some parts here and there, but at the highest level, it's credibility plus reliability plus intimacy over self-orientation is trust. And we started asking our clients really specific questions around, are we credible? Are we reliable? Do we have a good relationship? Like, I think we have a good relationship. Do we have a good relationship? And the results have just been phenomenal. One, they're great. They're highly positive. All of our clients overwhelmingly trust us, but we're getting these really good nuggets that if we hadn't put a framework, we hadn't asked the question, to your point, we would have never known. And so right now, those insights around our trust score and our trust survey that we're asking clients is yielding some really great new opportunities for us from a product development standpoint and just a service enhancement standpoint. So ask your client. Simple as that.
Yeah. Well, this level of detail that you're both sharing is so valuable. So thank you for sort of going this deep, because it's one thing to say you have to care about your clients. And if you care about your clients, it will drive growth. Every advisor, I believe, fundamentally cares about their clients. So it's more than that, right? And that's, I think, what you're demonstrating that Brighton Jones is doing so well, is like really operationalizing all of the things that can be easy to say, but difficult to implement, and doing so at a pretty, large enterprise level to drive towards impressive growth at the business. I'd have to assume, given the emphasis that you place on those client relationships, Carly, like you were saying, that referrals probably drive a good amount of your growth. So let's break down. And you said, I think next year for 2024, Scott, you said you're looking at 15 to 16% revenue growth. So break that down for me. Where are you expecting that growth to come from? How much from referrals, and then where else?
Yeah. So I think one thing that's really, really important as we think about growth, it's one thing to be like, hey, we want to grow 16% or 500 families, but then getting really clear on what are the channels, and then what is the activities to drive those channels. So today we have 4 main channels, and then we're always looking to add, almost like legs to the stool. So client referral is our number 1 channel. It's our biggest growth channel. I think next year we're targeting I'm just looking like 200, almost 40% of our growth we want to have come from client referrals. We believe, as Carly just said, that client referrals is a direct reflection of client service. It's almost like yin yang, or 2 sides of the same coin. If you are going above and beyond with the what else client obsessed attitude, you will get client referrals. And then you add some intention around asking for feedback, asking in a thoughtful way how they can help, or who do they know. So putting some attention to less a hope strategy, but more intention. So client referral, that's our number 1 channel. Our second largest channel is what we call self-generated. So it's senior leads, lead advisors, or senior leadership, expected to be out in the community. Every one of our lead advisors and senior lead advisors is expected to be on a board, a nonprofit board. And then over time, you'll plant seeds with people, and then those will come. And we just believe that being a part of a community, and that's why we're growing nationally. We think it's super important to be in the neighborhood, in the community where your clients live, but being a part of that, and you're intentional, and you tell the story around why you're part of Brighton Jones, we think that's so that's our second channel. Our third channel is digital, is where we drive organic or paid leads to Brighton Jones digitally. And we can talk about how we built that over the last 6 years, of how that went from bringing in 0 clients to over 50 clients, to going over to $1 million in new net revenue, to being what we think is a really great differentiator, super data driven, lower client acquisition cost. But then our 4th channels, we're part of one of the custodians referral programs.
Fidelity, yeah.
We're part of the Fidelity program. And so that's an incredible program too, that we're a part of. And so when we think about growth, we look at, all right, we want to grow 500 clients next year. We actually can break it down by the Portland team, by the Boston team, by the DC team, by client referral, self-gen, digital, Fidelity, all the way down to like, how many opportunities do you need to get those 4 Fidelity clients? Well, our close rate's 40%. We need 10 opportunities from that branch in Alexandria. And so we're super disciplined at that team of team structure I was talking about. Everyone like, hey, 500 clients, but Jimmy McDonald or Jay Ray in DC, you're responsible for actually 5 client referrals. So how are you going to generate 10 opportunities? And then the business plan is at the lead advisor level, says, how am I going to do 10? All right, I work with 80 clients. It's like, who do I know as a connector? Who's giving me the feedback? Who gave me a 10 on my NPS question? And so we're super disciplined as it just comes down to, what are the channels, and then who owns generating that? And then the business plan is the activity that drives the results that we want of that channel.
Yeah, so interesting. So 40% you're expecting to come from client referrals across the organization. Then you got self-generated, digital, and fidelity. Do you have an expected percentage breakdown for the remaining 60%? Is it 20, or?
So we, I hope this math works out. We want 10% coming from self-gen or client referral.
Great.
So out of the 16%, we roughly want 10% to be generated out of the pod from client referral and self-gen. I think those numbers about add up. And then for the digital and fidelity, it's like 2.5%. And then another percent is that we get some from COIs, senior leaders, some other channels that we get. You know, our 5th channel that we actually launched a business line called Open Plan, which services mass affluent. And so that's actually working with clients that have a little bit less than our minimum, but are on their trajectory. And so that's actually, we're in the process of building a 5th channel of growth, organic growth for us that we own and that we can control through a new brand and a new offering that we're calling Open Plan. And so that will produce 5 to 10 clients this year as well. We just don't call it out as like a main channel. A main channel is roughly at least $500,000 to $1 million in new revenue to really call it out. So.
Okay. So when you're thinking about supporting, you've got the team of teams model, you've got multiple geographic markets and multiple teams. And so in my experience, you can tell me if it's different at Brighton Jones, but typically, whether it's regional or just team preferences, but oftentimes teams have like their own way of doing things, right? So they'd have their own way of generating client referrals, or they have their own community involvement that might be specific, or who knows, like they each sort of have their own ways to approach growth. So how do you support all, because there's a lot of people to support. So when we're thinking about supporting these individual teams or individual advisors beyond at the corporate level, because I know you're doing a lot on the corporate level, and I do want to talk about what you're doing from a digital perspective. It's super interesting. When you're thinking about the advisory level or the team level, however you look at it, what does that support look like coming from Brighton Jones to all of the markets that you're currently in?
Yeah, I would. So just to highlight one, we have really thoughtful team leaders in place in each one of our regions, and these are individuals whom, all of them have been in the trenches before. They are CFPs, and so now they've elevated to that level of management, and they're overseeing all the different areas of that pod. So the keeping, the getting of clients, the keeping, the getting of people, the ops, right? And then those individuals connect weekly at a meeting that we call our one team beat. And they report back using those kind of visual reporting systems, how the health of their pod is, right? And so we're measuring, you got to measure what matters, right? And so we are measuring all the different, there's probably 3 to 5 key metrics in each one of those areas that they're giving us a health checkup. What's your health report, right? And it's color coded system. We're green here, we're yellow here, we're red here. And so we're supporting them through that. And then if I look at, wearing my chief experience hat, I'm meeting with each of those individuals on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis to triage client service. Our COO is helping them with people related items. We've got support in each one of our areas of expertise to ensure that they're, driving those pods accordingly. And then of course they've got each other, right? Like these are individuals who've got 15, 20 years of experience with our company and really know how we operate. I think that's hopefully that answers what you're getting at.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, even more than I was expecting, actually. If we were to go a little bit more granular, and maybe let's talk about the digital marketing team. So all the teams across the country leverage the digital marketing capabilities of your marketing team, I would assume. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So when did you start investing into, you said 6 years ago, is that right? You started investing into digital marketing. Tell me a little bit about that, like what that journey has been like. Because I was very excited when we first talked to hear that digital is one of your, you are achieving growth and you're looking to continue to achieve greater growth from a digital channel. Yeah,
no, we think digital is, has to be a great channel today and a channel of the future when you just look at, the opportunity there. I think it started, so I started with Brighton Jones about 8 years ago. And, I know Carla wasn't there, but a few of us were there. We're just saying like, hey, I think we have an opportunity to, bring some people in or some experts in to actually start, bulking up our marketing team. And so it started with finding a leader. So in about, I think it was 2016 or 17, we brought John Doherty in. Today he's our CMO. He was at Microsoft, and I think he ran the, Microsoft XP launch worldwide. And he's he is good on brand and storytelling, but he loves the analytics and the digital, lead gen efforts of it. And so it started with him. When you think about, things that are really hard in RIA, it goes people, process, technology. And so we made the decisions like, we got to hire somebody that knows a lot more about this than we do. And the other, decision that we made is saying, we think marketing and digital is so important, is so core to our business. We're going to build an in-house digital agency. And so today, I think our marketing team is roughly 12 people. We have marketing ops handling the back-end plumbing and Marketo and Snowflake and how we think about our data warehouse. We have our pay-per-click team. We have our creative team. We got our digital team. And so we're building an in-house digital agency because not only do we think two things. One, digital is a standalone channel that we believe will bring, let's just go with 50 to, hopefully 70 to 80 clients in this year. It's also an incredible support mechanism to drive client referrals. The articles, the feel, the messaging, everything that we do that the marketing team puts out builds trust. And so not only do we view it as like a great, channel that we can, depend on, and we get content, to your question, Meg, the individual in Boston or the individual, our lead advisor in Minneapolis, they may be writing content regarding Target or 3M or United Healthcare around what are the key companies that are there that may have complex compensation structures that we could offer value. In Portland, we talk about Nike. Sure. And so it's like we're creating this content. So we do rely on our teams to add the details of that. But then the marketing team, we have a story writer, or we have a content. So we just need the nuggets, and then the marketing team can run with it. But we see, so it's been a 6-year journey, but we view digital as a key differentiator for just a key ability for us to drive leads in existing and new markets at scale, and really be a data-driven, referrals. Sometimes they kind of happen in waves, or you don't really know. This is something, if you put more fuel on it, more activity will happen, in a short order. And so
that is so cool. I mean, I'm a marketer at heart. So when I meet people like you who are investing in their business in this way, it like makes me super excited, because it is, the modern consumer's buying journey has changed. I think we know that. And so it's no longer, you meet someone in person and they come into your office, right? There's this, it's not linear. They're no matter how they're introduced to you or how they come into the firm, they're validating you online. So they're checking you out on web, they're checking you out on social, and then they're potentially engaging with you. So they're subscribing. So to the content that you're talking about that's being fed, which absolutely feeds the client experience and drives referrals. We see that all the time. It's so nice to hear it validated, but they're engaging with you in some way. And then oftentimes what we experience when digital is done very well is that when prospective clients come in, they've almost already self-selected because of that experience that they've had. And so there's so many benefits to having a digital strategy and a team that supports your digital strategy. But oftentimes it can be sort of looked at as, I don't see the direct, immediate ROI from being active on digital, so I'm not going to do it anymore. And so being able to share your story and talk about the growth, and that it is a growth channel, and just the impressive growth that you've had is really, it's validating, and it's good for the industry to hear. And I know that technology is, and this will probably be my last question before I wrap this up, although I feel like I could talk to you both all day long. I know that technology is sort of an important part of fulfilling a lot of the strategy across the business. And I know, Carly, you were telling me earlier that you're building a new client app. So sort of like, how does that all come together? I'll frame the question this way. Like, as you're looking ahead to 2024 and beyond, you've got your Thrive to 25 vision. How are you bringing that together through technology? That's like the first part of the question. And then I would say the second part of the question is, like, in addition to technology, what else are you seeing on the horizon that Brighton Jones is investing into?
Wonderful. Well, I'll take the first one, and then maybe Scotty, you can take the second one. So we are investing in a client app. We call it Be Wealthy, a play on, be wealthy. And what we're focused on is just enhancing the client experience. So if you think about the feedback that we've been getting from our client innovation panels for the last 3 years, it was primarily focused around their portal experience. And how can we elevate the experience around them uploading and downloading documents? How can we enhance our communication with them, right? Like email is dead. Nobody wants to get another email. Don't want to, and we don't want to send anymore. So how can we enhance that communication? And how can we start visualizing, like taking to the next level our financial statements and visualizing things differently? We talk about Brighton Jones is that we're not competing with other RIAs. We're competing with tech companies. And so our consumers, our clients are used to the experience they get from Target and the experience they get from Nike and this beautiful bespoke experience. And so we're up leveling just that. The cool thing about Be Wealthy is that's the client facing experience. It's also our advisor's workstation. So it's a wonderfully beautifully designed two-sided workstation for our advisors and our clients. So as we look at 2024, we were talking about change as our competitive advantage. A whole heck of a lot is going to be changing. And so our advisors are just the right amount excited, the right amount, nervous, and our clients are just like, give it to me, give this to me. So we're excited.
Very cool.
Yeah. What's beyond that, Scotty?
Sticking with technology, and then we go to something else. We're also investing heavily into AI. We currently use Lytics, and we're starting to look into other technologies around how we can be more predictive, really on two things. One, how can we be more predictive to elevate our client service? And then in addition, how can we be more predictive to acquire clients that mirror or clone some of our best clients? And so we're starting to look at, not only how do we deliver, a digital solution on their phone and a workstation, but using, really predictive analytics to drive more client service and prospective clients.
I can't help myself, but we're talking about getting clients, but it's also, we use Lytics as the tool, which has a form of predictive AI that we're using, and it's helping us to keep clients. So sometimes the story we tell ourselves, right, is that Meg's great, Meg's surveys were awesome, and we don't anticipate any change in Meg's behavior or anticipate her leaving us. And yet AI has this beautiful ability to be like, oh, we know that Meg's been searching other firms and alert us to an opportunity to keep clients. And so we're in the infancy of figuring those things out. And yet when we talk to our peers, it's like, oh gosh, who knew you could even do that? So it's fun.
I think that's just the theme that I will take forward from this conversation is just like such a commitment to innovation, positive change for everyone who matters to Brighton Jones, and a real discipline, an organizational discipline by which to drive to growth. We covered so many topics, from business strategy, aligning vision and values to that business strategy, how you operationalize it across the firm, and client experience, client feedback, digital marketing, referrals, your open plan, which we didn't even really talk about, but that fascinates me as well. We're seeing firms, a small subset of firms like yours that are building a sub brand to sort of support the type of business that the larger brand doesn't currently serve very well, but knows that there's an opportunity. And we're talking about AI and client apps. So this is like such an incredibly valuable conversation. Carly, thank you. Scott, thank you. Thank you very much for giving me this time and for being so open to share with the advisory community. I am beyond impressed and very intrigued, and will continue following your success, because what you're doing it's industry leading in so many ways. And so I just can't thank you enough for the time. If somebody who's watching this wants to reach out and ask a question, would LinkedIn be the best place to find both of you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's brightonjones.com is your website.
That's right.
Okay, great. Well, for everyone who's listening, I hope that you took as much value out of this conversation as I did. I hope that you'll reach out either to me or to Carly or Scott with follow-up questions. And I hope that you can take some of the innovation that you heard today and apply it to how you are going to drive towards growth in your business. So thanks everyone for listening. Thank you again, Carly and Scott. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Meg.